On Thursday, Russia has launched 574 kamikaze drones and 40 ballistic missiles into the residential areas of Ukraine where the American company Flex Limited operates. They did not strike soldiers. They struck homes, schools, streets filled with families. 9 civilians dead, 19 wounded, 5 Americans bleeding on foreign soil. In the ruins of a shattered neighborhood, a mother's scream cut through the smoke. "Why my boy? Why him?" For Moscow, it was triumph. For America, it was provocation. For Ukraine, it was survival. Within hours, Trump in Washington and Zelensky in Kiev locked eyes across a secure line. Fury burned on both screens. There would be no negotiation, no pause, no retreat. The decision, a counterstrike so precise, so overwhelming that Russia itself would feel the fire it had unleashed. August 20th, 2025. The morning sky over Ukraine was torn apart by fire. Without warning, Russia unleashed one of the most devastating assaults since the beginning of the war. 574 kamikaze drones and 40 ballistic missiles streaked across the horizon in a coordinated swarm. Their targets were not frontline trenches or armored convoys. This time, Moscow's fury was aimed at ordinary neighborhoods, apartment blocks, and bustling commercial zones. Explosions ripped through the western region of Zakarpattia, where Flex Limited, a major U.S. manufacturing company, operated its facilities. Within minutes, warehouses and residential blocks were engulfed in fireballs. The death toll began to climb. 9 civilians were killed instantly. 19 more lay wounded, 5 of them American citizens. The air filled with choking smoke, shattered glass, and the anguished cries of survivors clawing through the rubble. Amid the chaos, a heartbreaking scene froze even the most hardened soldiers in silence. On a street reduced to twisted steel and broken concrete, an elderly Ukrainian mother dropped to her knees beside the ruins of her home. Her son had been among the victims trapped beneath the debris. She wailed uncontrollably, her voice piercing through the thunder of distant explosions. "Why my boy? Why him?" Her cries echoed across the neighborhood, a chilling reminder that this was not just a military strike. It was a war against families, against innocence itself. By mid-morning, sirens across multiple Ukrainian cities wailed endlessly as firefighters and medics struggled to reach impact zones. The attacks were more than a show of force. They were a message from Moscow. Russia was willing to strike deep into Ukraine, even at the cost of slaughtering civilians and targeting American businesses. The world watched in horror. For President Zelensky in Kiev and President Trump in Washington, this was no longer just another battlefield incident. It was a direct provocation, an insult, a brazen challenge. And as the dust settled over the burning streets, one truth became clear. America and Ukraine could not remain silent. The time for retribution had arrived. What would you think if the presidents of the United States and Ukraine attacked Russian territory together? Let me know in the comments, and now join me in watching how they reacted. News of the Russian strike raced across secure channels and into the highest offices of Washington and Kyiv. The numbers were staggering. 574 drones and 40 ballistic missiles, unleashed in a single wave against civilian neighborhoods. More than 200 buildings were damaged, 46 reduced to ash, and 9 lives extinguished in minutes. Among the wounded were 5 American citizens, their blood staining the very soil Russia swore to devastate. In the Oval Office, President Trump's face hardened as the reports poured in. "This," he growled, "is not just an attack on Ukraine. This is an attack on the United States itself." His words cut through the room like steel. Across the ocean, President Zelensky appeared on secure video link, his face pale but his voice burning with fury. "If we do not strike back now, tomorrow there will be 500 dead, 5,000 wounded, 50,000 homeless. Ukraine cannot wait, and neither can America." Then came the voice of General Raymond Cole, commander of U.S. European Command. His tone shook the chamber with controlled rage. "Russia thinks they can hide behind terror. They think slaughtering civilians and killing Americans will break us. They are wrong. For every missile they fire, we will send 10. For every drone they launch, we will answer with fire that erases their bases from the map." His declaration was met with a heavy silence that spoke louder than applause. an unspoken agreement that retribution was inevitable. The call between Trump and Zelensky lasted only minutes, but its outcome would shape the course of the war. There would be no diplomacy, no ceasefire talks, only a single decision: launch a joint counterstrike, swift, overwhelming, and unforgettable. The decision was made in less than an hour. At 1400 Kiev time, encrypted orders crackled across satellites and secure cables, binding two nations together in a single iron will. The mission was given a name whispered with cold determination: Operation Iron Thunder. It would be unlike any strike launched in the war so far. The plan called for two layers of destruction, perfectly synchronized. Ukraine would strike first, unleashing its swarm. Then America would strike deeper, heavier, with weapons never before used against Russian soil. From underground hangars across central Ukraine, more than 200 combat drones were prepared, an armada of steel and algorithms. Each carried high-explosive warheads or electronic jammers designed to blind Russian radar arrays and disable S-400 missile sites. Simultaneously, 48 HIMARS launchers and 90 Vilka-M rocket systems would fire volleys into Belgorod and Kursk, saturating Russian logistics hubs. But that was only the opening act. From the shadows of Poland's skies, 20 B-21 Raider stealth bombers stood ready. Each could carry payloads capable of crippling hardened bunkers. Their orders: penetrate deep into Russia and obliterate Engels Air Base and the Saratov missile depots, sites holding over 60 nuclear-capable bombers and stockpiles of hypersonic missiles. Beneath the Black Sea, 3 Virginia-class submarines waited silently, their tubes loaded with over 120 Tomahawk cruise missiles. Their targets: command posts, fuel depots, and radar grids. Overhead, 36 F-35 Lightning IIs and 18 F-22 Raptors would sweep the skies clean, jamming communications and striking down any Russian aircraft foolish enough to rise. The plan was ruthless, its logic undeniable. By combining Ukraine's swarm tactics with America's deep strike precision, the goal was not merely retaliation, it was decapitation. Russia's frontline command structures, airfields, and supply arteries would collapse in a single night. In the war room, the countdown was set. General Cole leaned over the table, his voice cutting through the silence. The Russians sent 574 drones. We'll send 1,200 back. They fired 40 missiles. We'll erase 40 targets in one night. By dawn, Putin will know what it means to provoke the United States of America. The operation clock was ticking. The storm was about to break. Before this fight, support us by liking, subscribing, and letting me know if you agree with this U.S. Ukrainian battle plan. August 21st, 2025, 23:59. The skies above Ukraine seemed calm, until they weren't. In the space of 3 minutes, the horizon lit up with fire. 1,200 Ukrainian combat drones rose from hidden silos, farmland roads, and camouflaged trailers, their rotors humming like a swarm of locusts. To the untrained eye, it looked like a constellation lifting into the night sky. To Russia's sensors, it was chaos. The first wave dove toward Belgorod and Kursk. Russian S-300 and S-400 batteries fired desperately, loosing over 300 interceptor missiles in just 10 minutes. But the swarm was too dense. 150 drones broke through, slamming into fuel depots and armored staging areas. 25 T-90 tanks erupted in fireballs, their ammunition cooking off in chains of secondary explosions. Railway yards crumbled as HIMARS rockets hammered the tracks, destroying 11 supply trains loaded with munitions. Even as the swarm struck, the second act began. Out of the Polish night, 20 B-21 Raider stealth bombers cut through Russian airspace unseen. At precisely 0120, they released payloads over Engels Air Base. 16 hangars disintegrated in firestorms, and with them, over 30 nuclear-capable bombers worth billions of dollars. Saratov's missile depot followed seconds later. A single strike triggered a blast so massive that windows shattered 40 miles away. Below the Black Sea, the submarines struck. 3 Virginia-class boats launched 126 Tomahawk missiles, their warheads streaking inland at near supersonic speed. Within minutes, dozens of Russian command posts and radar sites went dark. One Tomahawk obliterated a bunker housing high-ranking officers. Intelligence later confirmed at least 43 Russian staff commanders killed instantly. In the skies above eastern Ukraine, 36 F-35s and 18 F-22 Raptors roared into combat, shredding Russian fighters scrambling to respond. 17 Su-35s were destroyed in under half an hour, their wreckage falling like burning comets. Electronic warfare pods jammed Russian comms across an entire 300-mile front. On the ground, Ukrainian artillery added its voice to the chorus of destruction. 90 Vilka-M rocket systems launched salvos into Kursk's logistic hubs, reducing entire complexes to rubble. Satellite images showed a plume of smoke rising 25,000 feet into the sky, visible as far away as Poland. By 03 Huntok, Russia's western defenses were in freefall. In less than 4 hours, they had lost over 300 armored vehicles, 60 aircraft, and billions of dollars in infrastructure. Command networks were crippled, radar eyes blinded, fuel depots gutted. From Kyiv to Washington, the operation unfolded on screens glowing with real-time feeds. In a secure bunker, President Zelensky turned to his generals. For the first time, Russia is bleeding where it thought it was untouchable. And in the White House Situation Room, President Trump leaned forward, face lit by satellite imagery of burning Russian bases. His words were quiet, but they carried the weight of steel. This is only the beginning. By sunrise on August 21st, the battle was over, but the consequences were only beginning. Across the Russian frontier, silence replaced the thunder of war. Not because Russia had prevailed, but because so much of its Western defense network had gone dark. Intelligence reports revealed the scale of the blow. Key radar stations offline, command centers silent, supply arteries severed. What had taken years and billions to build was undone in one night. But the true impact reached far beyond the battlefield. In Brussels, NATO convened an emergency session. Diplomats whispered that Moscow's credibility had cracked. In Tokyo, Berlin, and London, newspapers carried a single headline: America strikes back. Global markets trembled. Oil prices surged, defense stocks soared, and in Moscow, the ruble plunged to its lowest point in 2 decades. In Kyiv, Zelensky addressed a weary but unbroken nation. Russia wanted fear. Instead, they have ignited resolve. Ukraine stands taller today because we do not fight alone. His words resonated not just with Ukrainians, but with millions watching across Europe. At the Pentagon, reporters crowded into a press room buzzing with tension. President Trump stepped forward. His voice was calm, but every word struck like a hammer. When Russia fired 574 drones and 40 missiles into civilian neighborhoods, they thought the world would look away. They thought America would hesitate. Instead, they watched as 40 of their strongholds vanished before dawn. This is not escalation. This is justice. The sharpest warning came from General Raymond Cole, his face grim, his tone unyielding. Let every adversary understand, logistics are not weakness. Allies are not bargaining chips. Strike an American interest, and you awaken the full weight of our arsenal. We do not forget, we do not forgive, and we do not lose. The message was unmistakable. What began as Russia's attempt to terrorize Ukraine had become a global lesson. The United States and Ukraine had proved that together, they could pierce even the heart of Russia. For every hostile actor watching, the warning was clear. To provoke America is to invite devastation. The smoke still lingered over Russia's western frontier as the world absorbed what had just unfolded. What began on August 20th as Moscow's attempt to intimidate Ukraine with 574 drones and 40 ballistic missiles ended less than 24 hours later in a catastrophe for the Kremlin. The destruction of bases, fuel depots, and command posts was not just a tactical victory, it was a strategic earthquake. For Ukraine, the night of Iron Thunder proved that it no longer fought alone. The image of Zelensky standing before his people, declaring that terror has only made us stronger, will be remembered as a turning point. For the United States, the strike was more than vengeance for 9 innocent lives lost and 5 Americans wounded. It was a declaration that no attack on U.S. citizens or allies would ever go unanswered. Around the globe, the message spread quickly. NATO allies breathed easier, adversaries fell silent, and hostile powers took note. The age of hesitation was over. America and Ukraine had written a new chapter in warfare, one where technology, precision, and unity could dismantle even the most fortified defenses. But beyond the statistics and satellite images, what resonated most was the human cost. A grieving mother's cries amid the rubble reminded the world why this fight mattered. The war was not about territory alone. It was about dignity, survival, and the defense of freedom itself. And so, the lesson was clear. Russia's arrogance had lit a fire it could not contain. That fire now burns as a warning to every nation that contemplates aggression. Strike America or its allies, and you risk annihilation. If you stand with our troops and believe America's strength must never waver, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support this channel.